Ladies and gentlemen, life is a journey where we are constantly seeking God's guidance, especially when it comes to relationships. Relationships are a powerful force in our lives. They shape who we are, what we do, and where we're headed. It's only natural that we desire to build connections that are aligned with God's will. But how do we know when a relationship is truly from Him? How do we recognize when something we are pursuing is not in alignment with God's greater plan for our lives? Today, I want to share with you 4 ways God shows you that a relationship is not His will. First, you will experience a lack of peace and inner assurance. There is a peace that comes from knowing you're in God's will, a peace that surpasses understanding, even in the midst of challenges. When a relationship is not in alignment with His will, that peace is absent. There may be an underlying unease, a constant sense of confusion, or a feeling that something isn't quite right. This unease is a red flag that we must not ignore. God does not lead us into turmoil. His guidance brings clarity and calmness to our hearts. If you are experiencing a persistent lack of peace, it is a sign to pause, reflect, and seek God for further direction. Second, God will show you that a relationship is not His will if it misaligns with your purpose. Every relationship we enter into should enhance and support the unique calling and purpose God has placed on our lives. If the relationship consistently pulls you away from your purpose, distracts you from your goals, or leads you into compromising situations that derail your growth, it is likely not part of God's plan for you. God's relationships are meant to propel us forward, to help us grow in our divine assignment, not divert us from it. If you find yourself losing focus on what God has called you to do, then it may be time to ask whether the relationship you're in is part of His will. Third, pay attention to the consistent struggle and conflict in the relationship. Relationships require effort and understanding, but constant fighting, strife, and an inability to resolve disagreements can be an indication that something is off. God desires peace, harmony, and growth in our relationships. If there is an ongoing battle for your heart, mind, and spirit, especially when efforts to reconcile or understand each other continually fail, this may be a signal that this relationship is not part of His will. God's guidance often leads to solutions, clarity, and mutual growth, not perpetual division and frustration. In moments of conflict, relationships in God's will ultimately allow room for learning, healing, and moving forward together. Fourth, if you are not growing in character spiritually, emotionally, or mentally, it's time to pause and evaluate. God uses relationships to refine us. He uses them to build our character, to teach us patience, kindness, and unconditional love. A relationship that does not foster growth, but instead causes you to regress in your faith, your emotional well-being, or your sense of self-worth may not be from God. A relationship in His will challenge you to grow and become more of who He has called you to be, even in the midst of challenges. It will not stifle your development or leave you feeling stuck or diminished. If you are not becoming the best version of yourself, if you are not advancing toward your highest potential, then it may be time to reassess. Finally, sometimes God's silence is His answer. We often seek God's confirmation through prayers, asking for guidance when we are unsure about a relationship. When we don't receive a clear response, or when God remains silent, we must listen carefully. Silence can speak volumes. It's not always that God doesn't want to answer. Rather, His silence can be a sign that the relationship is not in His will. God will never lead us down a path that is harmful or contrary to His perfect plan for our lives. If you have prayed earnestly and received no clear direction, it's important to understand that God's silence can be His way of protecting you from something that would not serve your best interest. God is always with us, guiding us through every season of life, including our relationships. But we must be attentive to the signs He gives us. A lack of peace, misalignment with purpose, constant struggle, lack of growth, and unanswered prayers. These are the ways God shows us that a relationship is not in His will. As you move forward in your relationships, remember that God's will for your life is always rooted in His love for you, His desire for your growth, and His plan for your future. Trust His guidance, lean on His wisdom, and allow Him to direct your path. When a relationship is part of His will, it will align with His perfect purpose for your life. When God is guiding us through relationships, one of the clearest signs that something is amiss is the lack of peace and inner assurance. Peace is not just the absence of conflict, it is the presence of divine clarity. It is the quiet assurance that we are walking in alignment with God's will, even when we don't have all the answers. It is the stillness in our hearts that assures us we are where we need to be, even in the midst of difficulty or uncertainty. This peace transcends understanding and circumstances. It comes from God alone, and it is a deep, unshakable knowing that no matter what happens, we are under His guidance, under His protection, and we are moving according to His plan. When peace is absent in a relationship, it's not something we should overlook. It is not a mere inconvenience or passing feeling. It's a message from within, a warning sign that something is not aligned with God's will for our lives. God's peace will not lead you into confusion, anxiety, or a constant sense of unrest. When we walk in the direction He has intended for us, peace accompanies us. It does not mean there won't be challenges or tough decisions, but even in those moments, we will know that we are exactly where we are meant to be. Without peace, there is no assurance, and without assurance, we are left adrift, uncertain of where to turn next. Imagine for a moment that you are in a relationship that at first glance seems to be fine. Everything on the surface appears to be okay. But as you reflect deeper, you realize there is an underlying sense of unease. There's a quiet storm brewing in your heart, and the more you ignore it, the louder it becomes. This is God speaking to you. It's not the world's noise or the distractions of daily life. It's a whisper from within, a gentle nudge that says, "This is not where I want you." The longer you ignore this unease, the more it festers, and the harder it becomes to ignore the truth. Peace, when it is absent, will always leave you feeling unsettled, restless, and unsure. It's crucial to understand that God is not a God of confusion. He does not create relationships that lead us into turmoil. The God who created the heavens and the earth, who has planned out every detail of your life with divine precision, does not lead you into places where peace is absent. If you are feeling an ongoing sense of anxiety, stress, or doubt in a relationship, it's time to pause and listen. Peace is the compass that helps us know we are walking in the right direction. When that peace is missing, it's not something to dismiss, it's something to honor and pay attention to. Too often we override our inner peace in an effort to push forward or force a situation, thinking that we can make it work or that it's our responsibility to stay in it. But peace is not something we create by force. It's something that flows from God when we are aligned with His will. Trying to manufacture peace through our own efforts can only lead to more confusion. When we ignore the peace that God offers, we risk making choices that take us farther away from His best for us. We may even convince ourselves that the unease is just part of life, that we need to push through the discomfort. But that's not the way God works. His peace isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's a steady anchor that keeps us grounded when we are faced with difficult decisions. God's peace also has a way of confirming His will in our hearts. It doesn't just show up in moments of clarity, but also in moments of decision. When you are uncertain about a relationship, when you don't know whether you should stay or go, the peace of God will serve as a clear indicator of what you need to do. If you are feeling torn, If you are questioning whether you should continue in a relationship, you must take the time to evaluate your inner peace. Does the relationship bring you peace? Does it affirm your heart's alignment with God's purpose for your life? If the answer is no, then it's time to stop and recalibrate. Peace is a gift from God, and it's one that should not be ignored or taken lightly. It is not a sign of weakness or indecision. It is a sign of divine alignment. God's peace guards our hearts and minds, guiding us toward decisions that align with His perfect will. If you feel a lack of peace in a relationship, it's a signal to listen to what God is saying to you. In those moments, choose to trust the peace that surpasses all understanding. Trust that God is leading you towards something greater, something that will bring you true peace, joy, and fulfillment. In a world full of distractions and conflicting voices, the absence of peace is often the most significant clue that God is trying to redirect your steps. Do not dismiss it. Embrace it. Trust it. God's peace is not just a feeling, it is His presence guiding you toward His best for your life. When we talk about purpose, we're not merely discussing something superficial or fleeting. We're talking about the very reason for our existence, the deep calling that resonates with who we are at the core. It is the divine direction that shapes our thoughts, decisions, and actions. And when we enter into a relationship, it must align with that purpose, because a relationship that diverges from your purpose can cloud your vision, slow your progress, and take you off course. A woman who understands her purpose knows that everything she does, every relationship she nurtures, every choice she makes is a reflection of that calling. And the truth is, when a relationship does not align with your purpose, it will begin to drain your energy, shift your focus, and divert you from the path God has set before you. God, in His wisdom, designed us for a purpose, a specific plan that only we are uniquely suited to fulfill. And within that purpose lies the fulfillment of a deep and meaningful life. However, when we allow ourselves to become entangled in relationships that do not align with our purpose, we find ourselves in conflict. Our purpose is the compass, and relationships that do not support or nourish that direction begin to feel like resistance, like we are constantly pushing against something that isn't meant to be there. We feel torn between what we know we are meant to do and what we are being pulled to. This tension is not something we are meant to live with indefinitely. God's purpose for us will always move us forward. It will never hold us back. And it will never create unnecessary struggles that distract us from His plan. Purpose is about alignment. When you are walking in your purpose, you are in harmony with your calling, and everything around you begins to fall into place. But when a relationship is misaligned with that calling, it introduces chaos. You may find that your passions, your ambitions, and even your desires seem to be stifled or dismissed. You may lose sight of your goals and ambitions because the relationship demands so much of your attention, energy, and focus. You begin to question whether you are on the right path, whether you are still fulfilling what God placed within you. That doubt is a sign that the relationship is pulling you away from your purpose. God's will for our lives is never about limiting us or holding us back from the greatness He has placed within us. When you are in a relationship that truly aligns with God's plan for you, it encourages you to pursue your dreams, your goals, and your higher calling. It brings out the best in you, it challenges you to grow, and it supports the direction you are headed. A relationship that is out of alignment with your purpose will have the opposite effect. It will cause confusion, stagnation, and in some cases, deep frustration. Instead of propelling you forward, it will anchor you to a place of uncertainty. The key here is recognizing that your purpose is sacred, and it is the foundation upon which everything in your life must be built. When you align your relationships with your purpose, you're not just seeking to fulfill your own desires, you're opening yourself to fulfilling God's divine plan. A woman who has clarity on her purpose will know that a relationship that doesn't foster that purpose isn't a relationship worth pursuing. The relationships that align with your purpose will complement the vision you have for your life. They will add value to it, and they will help you grow into the person God created you to be. But relationships that divert you from your true calling will only distract you from the greatness that lies ahead. Ask yourself, does this relationship inspire me to live fully in my purpose? Does it encourage me to pursue my calling with passion and conviction? Or does it make me feel lost, unsure, and disconnected from what I know I am meant to do? When a relationship is in line with your purpose, it will lift you up, it will provide support when needed, and it will provide space for you to grow into the woman you are meant to be. But when it is misaligned, it creates obstacles, distractions, and even doubts about your worth and your abilities. Your purpose is the very essence of who you are, and it is not something you should compromise for anyone or anything. God designed you with intention, with a unique role in His divine plan, and no relationship, no matter how alluring or convincing, should ever cause you to stray from that. If you find yourself in a relationship that is pulling you away from your purpose, it is time to pause, reflect, and make the necessary adjustments. Trust that God will guide you back to the path He has set for you. When you walk in alignment with your purpose, everything else will fall into place. Relationships will not hinder your growth, but will empower you to reach the fullness of who you are in God. The consistent pattern of conflict in a relationship can also reflect a lack of shared vision or purpose. If you find that despite your best efforts, you and the other person are always at an impasse, it's possible that your paths are just simply not meant to intersect in the way you hope. It's crucial to remember that relationships are not only about emotions or personal attraction, they are about purpose, alignment, and walking together toward a shared vision. When that vision doesn't align, no amount of effort or good intentions will bring the relationship into harmony. If every effort to find common ground is met with further dissonance, it's time to seek God's guidance to discern whether this relationship is leading you closer to His purpose or away from it. Sometimes in the midst of constant struggle, we also lose sight of our own well-being. A relationship that leaves you perpetually in conflict can take a toll on your emotional, spiritual, and even physical health. You may begin to feel overwhelmed, stressed, or drained by the relentless tension. You may find it hard to focus on your calling, to maintain a sense of inner peace, or to nurture your relationship with God. God's will for you is always to live in abundance, in peace, and in harmony with His design for your life. Relationships that consistently cause you to feel less than, to doubt your worth, or to question your identity are not meant to be a part of that abundant life. The constant conflict may also be a signal that God is calling you to a deeper reflection. Perhaps it's not just about the relationship itself, but about your own inner state, about the areas where you might need healing, clarity, or a shift in perspective. God can use the struggle to show you places within yourself that need growth, to help you confront insecurities, fears, or old wounds that are affecting how you interact with others. However, when the conflict becomes endless, it is vital to take a step back and ask God for insight. Is the struggle something you're meant to overcome together with this person? Or is it a sign that you need to move forward separately, allowing God to heal and guide you in a new direction? In relationships that are ordained by God, peace is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to navigate them with wisdom, love, and mutual respect. The absence of constant struggle does not mean there will be no hard times. It means that even in difficulty, you will be able to find resolution, to reconcile, and to continue walking together in unity. If the conflict you are facing seems endless, it's time to turn to God for His guidance, to reflect on the purpose of the relationship, and to discern if it truly aligns with His will for your life. He will always lead you to the relationships that uplift you, challenge you in ways that are healthy, and ultimately bring you closer to His purpose. No growth in character is one of the clearest signs that a relationship is not aligned with God's will. Growth, after all, is one of the primary purposes of our lives. Every relationship, whether romantic, familiar, or professional, is an opportunity for us to evolve into the person God has destined us to be. But when a relationship stunts your growth, when it holds you back from becoming the person you're meant to be, then it's not serving the divine purpose God has laid out for you. Character is not just about outward actions or appearances. It is the heart of who we are, the essence of our integrity, our values, and our ability to respond to life's challenges with grace, strength, and wisdom. It is through relationships that we are often stretched and refined. God places people in our lives to teach us, to challenge us, and to help us see areas of our character that need transformation. The right relationship will draw out the best in you, pushing you to rise above your weaknesses, to become more patient, more kind, more understanding, and more loving. One of the most painful realizations is when we recognize that a relationship isn't allowing us to grow spiritually or emotionally. We start to notice that we are no longer as patient or forgiving as we once were, that our words become sharper, our thoughts more negative, and our actions less in line with God's love. We begin to feel spiritually dry, disconnected from God, and unsure of our purpose. Instead of encouraging us to walk in God's light, this relationship pulls us into the shadows, into a place of fear, confusion, and doubt. It keeps us trapped in cycles of unhealthy behavior that erode our peace and our connection with God. God's intention for every relationship is to build us up. His relationships are meant to teach us lessons in humility, grace, love, and sacrifice. They are meant to refine our character, to show us the areas of our hearts that need healing, and to reveal our true strength. When you are in the right relationship, even the most difficult moments become opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. You learn how to deal with conflict in a way that doesn't break you, but strengthens your faith and deepens your understanding of God's love. You grow in patience, in forgiveness, and in your ability to serve others selflessly. Every challenge becomes a chance for you to rise, to reflect more of the character of Christ in your life. The truth is that every relationship should be a mirror one that reflects both the beauty and the brokenness of who we are. It should show us where we need to grow, where we need to heal, and where we need to surrender more fully to God's will. If a relationship is not helping you grow in character, it is not leading you toward becoming more like Christ. It's important to recognize that you are not just in a relationship for companionship or emotional fulfillment. You are in a relationship to become better, to become more aligned with God's divine plan for your life. God doesn't want you to remain stagnant. He doesn't want you to be in relationships that hold you back or drag you down. He desires for you to be constantly moving forward, becoming the person He created you to be, and walking in the fullness of your destiny. If you are in a relationship that is not nurturing your growth, not encouraging you to become more like Christ, then it may be time to evaluate whether that relationship is truly from God. Remember, relationships are meant to be part of God's refining process. If you are not growing in character, it is not just a matter of finding the right relationship. It's a sign that something within the relationship is out of alignment with God's will for your life. And as difficult as it may be, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to step away from relationships that do not contribute to our growth. Trust that God has better plans for you, plans that will lead you to a place where you can flourish, where your character can be refined, and where you can become the person He always intended for you to be. Our character is one of the most precious gifts we possess. It defines who we are, how we respond to life, and how we impact the world around us. If a relationship is not helping us grow in character, it is not aligned with God's divine plan. God's will for us is always to move forward, to become stronger, more compassionate, and more aligned with His purpose. He desires relationships that refine us, that challenge us to become better versions of ourselves, and that guide us toward His destiny for our lives. When we find ourselves in relationships that hinder our growth, we must trust that God has a greater plan in store for us. We are not meant to settle for stagnation. We are meant to evolve, to thrive, and to step into the fullness of who we are called to be. Remember, a relationship that does not contribute to your growth in character is not serving the greater purpose God has for you. So trust in His guidance, trust in His plan, and allow Him to lead you to the relationships that will help you grow, flourish, and become all that He has created you to be. Thank you